All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time of year. It is October, and this is the month dedicated to horror and all things horror. What I want to talk about today is the different kinds of horror and which camp do you fall in? Which camp more represents the kind of horror that you like? And I'm going to use two companies, two production houses that are prominent in horror culture right now, and that's A24 and Blumhouse. And, I want to start out by saying this. As an artist, I naturally would gravitate to something like A24. From an aesthetic standpoint, I tend to look at film in a way that dissects it more than really is just thoroughly entertained by it. Naturally, that's how I am. But I've learned over the years how to be entertained. So I'm figuring out the value of each kind of style of horror movie. They both bring value, but I want to go into why they bring value, and I want to go into the strengths of each of those big names. So first off, Blumhouse makes films that entertain. A24 makes films that are great or teeter-totter on greatness. And here's the thing. All films that are great are not necessarily entertaining. And all films that are entertaining are not necessarily great. So in that way, Blumhouse and A24 balance each other out. So you look at films like Smile. I think Smile was Blumhouse. I'm hoping it was Blumhouse. If it wasn't Blumhouse, it was definitely within the Blumhouse style. And what it does is it takes a kind of tried and true element. The whole smiling demonic possession thing, that shit has been going on forever. That's like the new face of horror, the smiling thing. And that's been going on since YouTube's, there was a short film called Seance, and then there was this other film, the follow-up to it, where it ended with this woman that was clearly possessed that was smiling. Well, thank God Smile doesn't just, rely on that, and that's all it is. But it harkens back to that particular calling card, that cliche of horror. What makes it good is that the filmmakers know how to entertain. They know how to take things that are familiar, which is great for the box office, because if you make something that the box office is, and the people that make the box office, if it's something they're familiar with, then they'll buy it, they'll go to it, they'll watch it. And I think in this way, it doesn't have the same challenges as A24. A24 makes films that are very challenging. They're artistically beautiful. They require more than one watch in order to take in the full scale of what the piece is trying to say. And that's very different than what Blumhouse does. So if we were going to talk about it in terms of food, I think Blumhouse is the golden corral of movie making, and I think A24 is a higher end restaurant. Now here's the thing: is one better than the other? No, because I've gone and I've eaten at a fucking 5-star restaurant, and then I've turned around and I've eaten at Golden Corral. I've turned around and I've eaten at Denny's. I've turned around and I've eaten at Waffle House, and they were both satisfying in different ways. And I think if you look at there's streaming services that behave the same way that Blumhouse and A24 behave. Netflix behaves differently than Mubi. If you're not familiar with Mubi, it's one of my favorite streaming services. They have films that you would find in the Criterion Collection. And some of these films are considered great films. They're considered some of the greatest films of our time. Well, they treat all of their genres like that. Whereas Netflix is a little more accessible. And being accessible, it more than likely, I would assume that it has a larger audience than Mubi. But I like that they're both around and available to where you can partake in both. Now here's my thing. I wish Hollywood would take that approach and not, and it there not have to be a specialized, vehicle over here that trickles into Hollywood. I wish Hollywood would just embrace that whole thing. Because films like Black Coat's Daughter, which is an A24 film, very cerebral. I don't know how that got made, but A24 somehow made it possible. You got films that teeter-totter on walk the line between both, and I think about It Follows. It Follows plays like an old 80s horror movie, complete with synth music. I don't know how those films slipped through the cracks. I think It Follows was more mainstream, but that's a darn good film if you want to watch something that both sides can appreciate. So, first off, Smile is a big recommendation for me as far as Blumhouse is concerned. From the A24 camp, I'm not going to go with the usual Hereditary. I'm not going to go with Midsommar. I'm not going to go with, I think, The Witch. There's mixed feelings about The Witch as to even whether it was horror or not. I don't know if it was, because I'm still trying to figure out what the hell's the difference between a thriller and a horror movie. But I strongly encourage, everybody out there to experience both and compare. And I'd love to know what you think about those two companies when it comes to the genre of horror. A24, I strongly suggest Black Coat's Daughter. Watch it once, watch it twice. There's a certain dread to it and a certain darkness that I think Blumhouse films they lack. And I think Blumhouse with Smile has a certain degree of entertainment that many A24 films could be looked at as lacking. So if you get a chance, buckle down. Let me know which is your favorite. Give me your top 5 Blumhouse movies, horror movies, and top 5 A24 movies, and I'd love to discuss. Share, like, and subscribe. And this is your guide, the brave artist, for Screen Say. And until the next time, take care.